What it is, guys, it is your boy, Samoan Fan 101, and today we are once again going to be looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe and their recent bout of wokeness. Now, this is actually going to be a different topic in terms of which point of view to go forward with. I'm not saying it's never been brought up before, it most likely has, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. When people talk about the MCU, and, you know, the wokeness of Captain Marvel and the supposed plan going forward after Avengers Endgame, people bring up, they bring up, oh, look at what happened to Star Wars, look at what happened to Ghostbusters, and the other movies that went woke, The Last Jedi, Ocean's 8, you know, plans for future films that might do this. And those are all valid, very valid. Those are all valid. They had the backlash. They had everything. But, and don't mind the hair, by the way. It looks like a flat top with the camera. But, the one thing I haven't seen brought up as much, not saying it's never been brought up, but haven't been brought up as much, has to do with, well, a couple things, really. Two things, actually, I want to bring up. One, Disney's overall message of the wokeness part. It's not just Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm. It's also Pixar, Disney itself, whatever other subsidiaries that Disney has. They are going the woke route. Or if they're not going the woke route, they're not putting their best foot forward. I recently saw the trailer for Toy Story 4. I thought it was a decent trailer for what it was. I thought it looked nice. We saw Bo Peep once again in her old outfit, not in the new, funny, let's see, how could I put this? The Elsa Ray outfit. She had the Elsa look with the Ray staff, which was just hilarious. But we saw her back in her little, you know, pink outfit of a sheep herder. But it didn't wow you like say the previous Toy Story films did. Now, for all we know, it may be great. But look, there's clear, and looking at other films and other little tidbits here and there, there's clearly some kind of directive at Disney. And also with the live-action Disney remakes and how they're being handled, clearly Disney is not doing itself right. Either other parts of Disney are going woke and are pissing off the fans, or other parts of Disney are just slumming it. Even if some of the films are good, they're slumming it in terms of the ideas and what they could do with the properties that they have. So, I think that's getting a backlash. I'm not saying that they're not going to make money. They probably are going to make money. But they do have that going against them. The other reason, and this is what the basis of what I made the video on. The other reason why this is the absolute worst timing for the Marvel Cinematic Universe to go down this direction after Avengers Endgame, after seeing Captain Marvel, the biggest reason why this is the worst, the timing is so bad, is because of competition. The competition is fierce right now. With a lot of other film studios. Of course, you got your film studios like DreamWorks, you know, like a Warner Brothers, and a bunch of other smaller, you know, productions, like, say, Blumhouse, who, of course, recently released Halloween 2018, late last year. But I'm talking specifically about two franchises. And I'm not talking about Star Wars, you know, other, you know, properties owned by Disney. I'm not talking about that. I am talking specifically about the DC Extended Universe and the Monsterverse. Whatever other little universes that have either been starting to start up or just starting up. I'm not counting them. I'm talking specifically the two other big dogs of this fight. Which is very funny, considering that this reminds me very much of professional wrestling back in the 1990s. And I'll get to that comparison in a bit. But think about it. You got the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DC Extended Universe, and the Monsterverse. All three of them have major, big franchise names. Of course, you got Captain America, you got Iron Man, soon we're getting X-Men and the Fantastic Four, we got Thor, we got Black Widow, we got a bunch of characters like the Hulk. The DC Extended Universe, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, we're going to be getting Shazam. In the future, we'll be getting other characters. And then, of course, you have the Monsterverse, and that right now contains, King Kong, Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Mothra, Rodan, other original creatures, as well as, if they do play their cards right, possibly more creatures from Toho. If they, continue to work alongside Toho, they could use other monsters if they wanted to, like Baragon, or Varan the Unbelievable, King Caesar, other monsters like Destroya, Mechagodzilla if they want to. Gigan. There's another one. But a lot of these assorted creatures and these characters, all part of big universes. What I think, and this is why I think it's the worst possible time, when competition is fierce, they go head to head, of course, to see who wins. That's the whole basis of competition. But then there's the other side of things. When one guy, or one group, at one time was the top dog for quite a while, but then they start slumming it, and then the rivals that have always been there but not nearly as big, something happens, they shoot up in popularity, and all of a sudden, they're the top dogs, and not the other guys anymore. This is exactly, and this is what I meant earlier, this is exactly what happened with professional wrestling back in the 90s. Very similar to today, where you have the MCU, the DCEU, and the Monsterverse. Back in the day, you had WWF. It was WWE. It's WWE now, but back then you had the WWF, WCW, and ECW. All in competition with each other to put on the best products that they can to make money, which sadly ECW wasn't really doing by the end of things. But, but all those things, they were going against each other. And of course, WWF was at one time the top dog. But then, the product was going down. They started slumming it. 1995 was a complete shit year for them, as well as for business. And while pockets of 96 were good, the NWO came for WCW in 1996, and WCW was kicking WWE's ass for the better part of 2 years. Nearly 2 years, their dominance reigned. It was ridiculous. Whether the show was even that good or not, there was something there to keep people watching. And WWF just didn't have that. Now, comparing it to today, you have a very similar situation. You have the MCU, which, compared to both of the other franchises, has been around for years. They've been around since 2008. This is their 11th year. It's 2019. And they've made smash hit after smash hit, whether financially or critically. Pointing to some of the easy ones. The Captain America movies, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, the first Avengers film, Iron Man 3, which made a lot of money. Whether you like the film or not, it made a shit ton of money. You got Thor Ragnarok, which was a smash hit and a complete revitalization of the Thor character. You got Black Panther, which did have a political agenda in it, but it was so minor. And it was maybe not minor, but it was small, and it didn't permeate the whole film. It allowed the film to tell a story. It was still a very good movie. That made a bunch of money. The Guardians of the Galaxy films, both of them were, in my opinion, were very good. Very good. In fact, they were some of the best films of the MCU, and they made a good amount of money with each film, especially the second one. You have all these things, but then Captain Marvel came out, and the advertising, and the things that Kevin Feige's been saying, the things that Disney's been sticking behind. Of course, the recent controversies with Rotten Tomatoes, the YouTube algorithm being changed, which I've tried looking up some videos now, like in upload date. That doesn't work, so clearly they fuck with the YouTube algorithm so much that I can no longer do functions that were easily accessible before that time. But now I can't do it. So, yeah, it doesn't make me feel too good, does it? But then you have various, you have these various things. Yeah, you got your obvious hit, Avengers Endgame, coming out next month, April, I think it was April 26th. I will be going to see that in theaters. But I do fear for the MCU after Endgame. I'll enjoy Endgame, despite Brie Larson. But I'll be going to see Endgame. But after Endgame, that's when, and after Spider-Man Far From Home, if you want to stretch it, that's when the real, metal comes into play. The real, the test of the metal, it will break or if it'll stick. That's what I think a lot of people, or some people, are missing about the DCEU and the Monsterverse. And that goes to the other part of that point. The DCEU and the Monsterverse are slowly rising in popularity. They started out small. They had Man of Steel in 2013 and Godzilla in 2014. Modest hits, whether you like the films or not, completely up to you, especially with Man of Steel. It was very divisive. Then you had the next film, which was Batman v Superman, which was even more divisive, but it did get a lot more hate than love back then, although I do say there are some good things about it. You got Suicide Squad, which I think most of us will agree was just a terrible film. Then you had Wonder Woman, and that's when things started to turn around for the DCEU. When Wonder Woman was a surprise smash hit, good word of mouth came around, and it made a lot of money. It was actually up until Aquaman, it was the most profitable DCEU film. More so than Batman v Superman. Actually, no, it was the second most profitable. I take it back. Most profitable was Batman v Superman. But more profitable than Man of Steel, than Justice League, which was its next film, and that film had problems too, but I don't put any of that blame on the people who made Wonder Woman, or were the masterminds behind Wonder Woman. That was a whole conglomerate of issues. But you had Aquaman, Wonder Woman, kind of turning the tide. Yeah, Justice League didn't do so well. But, again, that was a whole myriad of issues going on at the same time. Zack Snyder leaving, bringing in Joss Whedon, different people, and the film already being partially completed. Then you had, after that, you had Aquaman, which didn't come out for another 2 years. Until, almost 2 years, I should say. It was really a year, but pretty much the December tail end of 2018, I mean. And some people don't like the film, like Anna from that Star Wars girl. She did not like it. In fact, she hated it. There are some people who don't like it. A lot of people would agree, saying that, okay, not exactly the greatest, but it is fun. And it is entertaining. Aquaman definitely had something that some of the other DCEU films just simply did not have. And most would agree it's definitely the second best behind Wonder Woman. I haven't seen it yet, but I haven't had a chance to, so don't blame me. But you have all these things coming together, and then you have the upcoming films coming up. April 5th, I'm looking at the dates on the Wikipedia page right now. April 5th, 2019, Shazam's coming out. Next year, February 7th, 2020, Birds of Prey. I'm assuming that film will feature, not Black Widow. God, what's her name? She's got the big loud voice. She was a Black Canary. That's who it was. I think that's probably gonna have Black Canary. Let's just take a look. Well, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Figured that happened. Yeah, Journey Smollett-Bell as Black Canary. I figured that would happen. Huntress will be in the film. And of course, it's called Birds of Prey. It's usually more of a female-led thing. Birds of Prey has been in the past. So, to have this film be, female characters, if they don't go the woke route, it'll do just fine. Especially after there was the hits with Wonder Woman, Shazam, Aquaman, and what I think is going to be a hit in Shazam. Wonder Woman, speaking of Wonder Woman 1984, coming out June 5th of 2020, same time next year. You have The Batman, which is supposedly going to be released. Now, granted, The Batman has been, mired in issues. Going to be released 2 years from now, June 25th, 2021, directed by Matt Reeves. The Suicide Squad, so not directed by James Gunn. And say what you will. Say what you will about James Gunn as a person. And many people have. But James Gunn as a director, as a screenwriter, the guy knows his shit when it comes to that kind of thing. You got The Flash, which is the only one without a specific date. It only just says 2021. The Suicide Squad, by the way, is scheduled for August 6th, 2021. At least this is in U.S. I'm not talking international release. And currently in development is Aquaman 2, scheduled for release, the time schedule at least, if that's what they want, December 16th, 2022. So that's 3 years from now. So they got their, and that's 4 years from the last film. So they got their thing going with these films. And they want to focus on the individual movies. And you look at, the people who are in charge of these films. You got David Sandberg, who of course is directing Shazam. He's the one that directed it. He's only made 2 films before this. But both of those films were hits. You had Lights Out a couple years ago, and 2 years ago in 2017 you had Annabelle Creation, which I've heard was a very good film. Which is weird that they're going from 2 horror films to a kind of a comedy action. But let's see what he does, and if his work is anything to go by, it looks pretty good. Also, you have Kathy Yan, who's directing Birds of Prey. Very similar to Patty Jenkins, they're having a woman direct this movie. And unlike, say, Anna Boden and Captain Marvel, that movie with Wonder Woman was actually good. Now, this is actually going to be kind of like a proving ground, because this will be her first major film. She's done films going back to 2010, but I can't click on any of them on here. Mostly because a lot of them were short films. One was a documentary. The only other film that you could actually call a movie was called Dead Pigs, and I never saw it. Then and of course, screenwriting that film, you have Christina Hodson, who, again, hasn't done a whole lot of movies, but she did. But the movies she did do were Shut In in 2016, Forgettable in 2017, which I haven't seen, but I did hear about this one, Bumblebee 2018, which just came out a few months ago last year. And I heard that it was by far the best of all the live-action Transformers movies. I heard it was very, very good. It was very good. It was very entertaining with good characters. The main female character, I heard, was enjoyable to watch for the most part. Some people might have problems with it. And maybe part of that has to do with the fact that Michael Bay is not in charge, thank Lord. But yeah, if her work on Bumblebee is anything good, then I think Birds of Prey, we got something good there. You have The Batman, and say what you will about all the controversy, Matt Reeves, he knows his shit. Look at not all of his films, look at all the films he's directed, or he's been a major part of, going back to 2008. He was the one that directed Cloverfield. He directed Let Me In, which was a remake of Let the Right One In. It was a very good film. And he also directed and helped write the second of these 2 movies, which was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes. Both of those movies, of course, were hits. They were smash hits and also were fantastic films. And now he's directing The Batman. If anybody can make a good about this, in a franchise that has a long history, it's Matt Reeves. He can do it. Then you have James Gunn, which, his work with Guardians of the Galaxy speaks for itself. I guess if there was one movie that I'm a little worried about, it's The Flash, which of course is the one film that doesn't have a particular date. It's being directed by a duo called named John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. I haven't heard about these guys much, but apparently these guys together did several films, such as Horrible Bosses 1 and 2. At least they screenwrote it. They didn't direct all of them. They do their several things as actors, as directors, and as screenwriters. They screenwrote Horrible Bosses 1 and 2, at least the story part of 2. Maybe not the actual screenwriting. They were in charge of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, which you could argue is good or bad. It's not a horrible movie, definitely. They screenwrote that. And most recently, they were the screenwriters for Spider-Man Homecoming. They screenwrote it along with a few other guys. And they also did the story together by themselves, not the screenwriting. The screenwriting was like five guys, or 5 people. So, and now they're both directing and writing this, which they've done before. So, like in this film here called Vacation. So, there's definitely some talent behind all of these guys. All these people. So, you have that going for every single one of them. And some of these films look pretty awesome. Shazam, from what I've seen in the trailers, looks fantastic. Birds of Prey, if the writer, the screenwriter, and story person has anything to do with it, it should be at the very least a decent film. Currently it's filming, although some of them haven't, have already, I don't know, they've already finished filming, like Wonder Woman 1984. But then again, they're being released in the same year, so let's just see how it goes. You have the Batman, and yeah, it's mired with issues with Ben Affleck specifically, but Matt Reeves knows his shit when it comes to these kind of things. So I think that'll be at least pretty good. The Suicide Squad with James Gunn, it should be far superior to the other Suicide Squad. You have The Flash, which definitely has a lot of screenwriters and a lot of story people. But, let's see how it goes when we get closer. My point is, the DCEU, with its recent hits with Wonder Woman and Aquaman, is slowly gaining traction. They're gaining traction at a time when the MCU is not putting its best foot forward. They're doing it with Endgame, but they're not putting its best foot forward in other categories. They're going more politically correct. They're going with more of the politics, going with the wokeness, and making Brie Larson this unstoppable god compared to the rest of us men. And that's just the DCEU. That's just the DC Extended Universe. We're forgetting about the other franchise here. Not nearly as long, but you got the Monsterverse. Godzilla, of course, came out back in 2014. You got Kong Skull Island, which came out 2 years ago in March. And then in May 31st, so almost June, you have Godzilla, King of the Monsters. This film, and I've seen the trailers for it, this film looks freaking fantastic. It's got great cast with guys like Kyle Chandler, Vera Farmiga as the veterans, Ken Watanabe and Sally Hawkins, of course. You got Millie Bobby Brown, 11 from Stranger Things. So you got another guy, I'm forgetting his name. But you have all these actors, and Michael Dougherty, who also has a fascination with the monsters. He's made horror films where the main characters, or the main killers, I should say, are monsters. He was the one that did Krampus. So you have these guys who are known for their craft. And Adam Wingard, by the way, he's the one that's directing Kong Skull Island. Godzilla vs. Kong. Now, to be fair, this guy does have more of a spotty record, to be fair. He's been directing some movies going back to 2007. But, but not all these films were hits. Some of them, were smaller movies, which you understand early on. Some of them were hits, like You're Next and The Guest. I heard The Guest was fantastic. He directed a few episodes of a TV show called Outcast. I know nothing about that. But he directed the Blair Witch movie that came out a few years ago. And yeah, the one real black spot against him was that he was the director of Death Note, which not that good, I gotta tell you. But look, everyone's got their bad apple. This is his real chance to shine and prove himself and see if it's any good. But like I said, the trailers for Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I know I'm going a little bit spotty here, but I'm only showing you what I know. Or telling you what I know. You got the Monsterverse, and you got the DCEU. Two film franchises that started out small. They weren't the biggest of hits, but they made enough money in order to keep going. The studios, Warner Brothers and Legendary respectively, they got behind these franchises and said, okay, let's make films, and no matter what happens, let's just keep going through, trying to improve ourselves. They and all due respect to him, but they got rid of Zack Snyder. So they got rid of that, thing going against him. They got some people who know what they're doing. They got the right main producers, as like basically the Kevin Feige role. They got the producers behind him. So they have what they need. Now all they got to do is mold it into something good, and I think that's what they're doing. You got these films gaining traction, and if history can speak for itself, this will be like the wrestling thing back in the day. One day, maybe not now, obviously, but when the DCEU and the Monsterverse keep on rolling and they keep making films and keep making more and more money and more smash hits, they might overtake the MCU one day if the MCU keeps going down this path, and that's the key. If the MCU keeps going down this path. If this was a one-time thing, or if this is a Captain Marvel only thing, then they'll survive. But if this permeates the rest of their movies in some way, shape, or form, then it's going to be a real tearjerker. And tearjerker in the worst way, and like, man, look, you had a great franchise and now you're just friggin' killing it. So, the MCU has to be very careful in how they handle their filmmaking. Because if they go down that route, and the DCEU and the Monsterverse keep rising and rising, both in money, in notoriety, in just a critical success, how good the films are by themselves, all these things combined, getting the right people, the right actors, they're going to rise up, and the other is going to fall. And sadly, the one that's going to fall is a franchise that we all currently love and we're worried about. So, this is the worst time for the MCU to be going woke. If it is going woke. And I believe that at least partially it is. If it is going woke, this is the worst time. Because you have two other franchises with two big films coming out in the next couple months. You got Shazam, which is coming out in just a couple of weeks. And you got Godzilla King of the Monsters, which looks like a freaking action fest on steroids. And it looks like, and with some good acting behind it, so it looks like it's going to be pretty amazing. So that's all I gotta say. And the MCU, you really got to clean up your act, or else these film franchises, they're gonna take you over. And that's all I gotta say. So until next time, guys, I will be reviewing Solo today, later on, after I, clear out my throat and everything. So until then, guys, be well, stay safe, have a good day, and I'll see you guys next time with the next video. Peace.